Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome my special guest, John Borack, to the channel. Tonight we're going to take a look at the Graham Parker and the Rumour catalog. Primarily, we are focusing tonight on 1976 to 1980. Let's do it.
Giving you what you paid for. Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome my special guest, John Borack, who he's been on this channel before. Author, scholar, power pop enthusiast, a man that stands out among men.
Wow.
But we're here to, hey, you want an, hey, I'm going to give you an intro.
Yeah,
but
he's here tonight. I might hire you as my agent.
I could, if you need me. I'm here for you. But John's been on the show before. We talked power pop with Steve Schnee. He is back, and tonight we're going to talk about Graham Parker. Now, in particular, what we're going to talk about tonight is that era from 1976 to 1980. Now, we'll cover the later era later, but we have to do this in increments because, well, look at Graham Parker. John, come on, what a career, right?
I mean, what a career and so many releases. I mean, I was telling you before we went on, I was digging out my Graham Parker CDs to kind of do some research for this, and I didn't realize I've got about, I'd say 30 to 40 CDs, and that doesn't even scratch the surface of his career because the guy's had so many compilations and live recordings and demos, and it's just crazy, but it's all such high quality. I'm looking forward to talking about it today.
Yeah, well, I want to say to everybody here that John came up with this topic, and I went, let's do it. Because, well, the way we work this on the Warehouse, we're always trying to cover those artists that people don't talk about very much. And I think, and I'm not trying to, Graham Parker probably always needs more love because there's a lot of these records that are considered classics that maybe a lot of people don't really come back to. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. So this is a perfect topic. So anyway, so Graham Parker was born 1950 in England, rose to prominence in the mid 70s, singer, songwriter, often labeled as a angry young man. When I listen to a lot of this stuff, I think, well, we haven't gotten there yet, but when I initially hear it, like we're just going to go through the catalog, but like this record right here, I don't know what you hear, John, but I hear a lot of Van Morrison and I hear Elvis Costello. And I know that's been mentioned before in like a lot of reviews and stuff. Maybe not the Van Morrison thing, but I really do hear Van Morrison on here. We're going to start out with the first album, Howlin Wind from 1976. So this was produced by Nick Lowe, recorded at Eden Studios in London. Now, this is Graham Parker and the Rumour album, but it doesn't say that. You got Brinsley Schwartz, which, of course, Nick Lowe was in that band. Bob Andrews, keyboards, Martin Belmont, rhythm guitar, Andrew Bonar on bass, and Steve Goldling on drums. You've got some horns on here or brass from the Rumour horns. Anyway, I'm going to throw it over to John, get his thoughts on this record. John, what's your thoughts on this? Because this record is Rolling Stone, like one of the 500 greatest records of all time. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and that's hard to argue with that. It's an amazing debut. I mean, just considering his first record, and you're right about the Van Morrison influence.
Well, I didn't really read anything about it, but I thought when I initially hear this, I do hear a Van Morrison. I'm not saying that he really sounds like Van Morrison, but there might be some Van Morrison influences.
Yeah, no, and Graham has said in interviews that he was influenced by Van Morrison. A lot of his demos prior to this album, more singer-songwriter type stuff, and was definitely influenced by Van. But what I hear a lot, especially on the first couple of records, is a really, really great soul influence. So if you listen to the first track on this one, for example, White Honey, it's got that soul, it's got that swing, it's got the Rumour horns. It's just an amazing track, and just so. I mean, what a great way to just like get out of the gate and just say to everybody, here I am, I'm going to do something, I guess it was called pub rock at one point, but I don't consider this really pub rock. It's bigger than that. It's just bigger than that to me.
It seems like I could see where one would look at this and go, yeah, I can see the foundations in pub rock. Brinsley, well, look at the people that are playing. Brinsley Schwartz, Nick Lowe's producing it. It came out of that pub rock kind of foundation. But I agree with you, John. I think it's a little bit more advanced than that.
Yeah, and the infusion of soul, I think, is what takes it to a whole nother level. And Nick Lowe's production, it's fine. Basically at that point in his career, Nick was just trying to record it and stay out of the guy's way, and that's pretty much what he did here. Nick's nickname was Basher. Just bash it up and put it out there, and that's what he did with this record. I mean, it was, it's not like pristinely produced or anything, but it's the perfect audio.
I think it's kind of accurate. I think it captures the band, or Graham Parker at this moment.
That's what I was going to say. It's the perfect capsule of where they were at that particular time. An amazing live act. I mean, they're always an amazing live act. And if you listen to any of the live releases, and I'm going to talk a little bit about one later, but they were just on fire every time they played. And even when they got back together in 2012 and toured, amazing. And it's like they hadn't lost a step. I do want to say, but before we go any further, rest in peace, Bob Andrews, keyboard player. He just passed away in June of this year. So we're missing one Rumour member now, sadly. But he was a great part of that band and be sorely missed.
Yeah, it's a loss. Well, I was talking to some people recently. I don't know, just people that I talk to, like that have been on channels, and it just seems like, I'm not trying to bring the show down, but there seems to be a lot of artists passing away, and they always say it comes in threes, and I'm just saying, but there's just been a lot going on lately. But
yeah, the older we get, the more that's going to happen, especially with the people we grew up listening to. It's not something I'm looking forward to. That's for sure.
No.
Very sad. Very sad.
So is there anything on this? Well, I don't want to make you do a rating. Normally we do ratings, but the Graham Parker catalog is so strong. I don't think we have to do that. Is there any particular tracks on this record that you find to stand out that really?
I mentioned White Honey earlier. That's one of my favorites. Back to School Days, which is kind of a rockabilly song. I love that one. Dave Edmunds covered it and did a great job. But Graham's version's a little rougher. His voice is obviously a little rougher than Dave Edmunds, but that's a great song. And the other two I would mention, Soul Shoes is just a great, catchy soul number. And he still performs that in concert. And amazing track. And then the last song, Don't Ask Me Questions, that was one of his most popular tracks from the early years. It was a hit single in the UK. Graham didn't have much success here, his first several records in the US, but he was a lot more popular in the UK. And Don't Ask Me Questions was almost kind of a dance track, if you can imagine that, but, without being too overtly, hey, let's dance, kind of thing. But very, very passionate. And that's one thing you can say about Graham. Throughout his career, everything he's done has been just passionate.
100%. Yeah, this record and the follow-up record did not chart here in the States.
Right. Unfortunately.
But that doesn't mean, don't read into that, ladies and gentlemen, because these records are well worth picking up. Anyway, but this, I don't know. There's not a weak record in the catalog. I would recommend this probably. This is probably a 9 out of 10 album. Could it be a 10 out of 10? It could be. But for me, I'm going to give it a 9. I don't know.
I would tend to agree with that. I mean, it's not a perfect record, but it's certainly one of the best debut albums of the 70s. Definitely.
Yeah, it's well thought of. The next record that we're going to talk about is Heat Treatment 1976. So this was released just 6 months after the debut. I'm not sure exactly why it came out. Well, let's be honest. We've talked about this on the show before. Back in the old days, 60s and 70s, man, you know how it worked, John. They would make these artists had to put out 2 records a year. I'm sure that this fell under that.
They were working hard. Yeah, definitely.
They were working them hard. Not to say that there's anything wrong with this record, but this was produced primarily by Robert John Mutt Lang. You know that. Def Leppard, ladies and gentlemen, and Nick Lowe on one track. So, same lineup for the debut, but it's just Parker. It's just Graham. There's no Rumour yet, even though it really is the Rumour. I'm going to throw it over to John. John, what's your thoughts on this record?
Oh, I love this one. It's interesting because I'm looking at my CD here. On the front cover, it says Graham Parker Heat Treatment. On the back cover, it says Heat Treatment, Graham Parker and the Rumour. So I'm not sure if the original LP said that or not, but it does say that.
That's what what do you have, the remaster with the bonus track?
No, I just have the original CD whenever that came out on.
Okay.
But yeah, it says Graham Parker on the front, Graham Parker and the Rumour on the back cover, which is kind of strange. But
yeah, mine does too. But I've got like 3 bonus tracks on mine. This is like the remaster that came out. Well, I'm gonna say recently, but time flies. This is probably 10 years ago when this came out or more.
What are the bonus tracks on that one?
No, you're gonna make me put glasses on that.
Well,
all right. Hold Back the Night. Well, there's 2 bonus tracks. I think I can't tell because of the lighting. Hold Back the Night. Let me get sweet on you.
Let me get sweet on you. Yeah. Yeah, that was a single. Hold Back the Night was a cover of a song, I believe, by the Tramps with 2 M's, who did Disco Inferno. But
is that Disco Inferno?
Yeah, they killed that one. I mean, Hold Back the Night. It's amazing. I mean, it's just one of my favorite early era Graham Parker songs. They do an amazing version, and they did a lot of soul covers. We're going to talk about one that's on the next record, but they did a version of "I Want You Back," which was released, I think, as a B-side for a single that was on the came off of the Squeezing Out Sparks album, and a great version of "I Want You Back." So this is, that was another one, the one that you just mentioned. So yeah, but as far as the record itself, I love the title track, Heat Treatment. Similar to White Honey, just right out of the gate, kind of a swinging, finger snapping, powerful, soulful song. That's one of my favorites, definitely on there.
I don't find that this record is that much. I'm not being critical, but I don't think it's that much different than the debut.
Yeah. Well, he found
it's kind of like an extension of the debut to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that bad?
He was definitely sticking with it.
I don't have any problem with that. The production, Mutt Lange produced this. Of course, we don't have any Def Leppard production yet, but I think it's fine. I don't have any issues with the production on this record. I think the songwriting's good. It's just there's really nothing that I want to critique about it. It just seems to be more of the same now. Some people may applaud that. Some people may want something different. But I will say this, that the reviews that came out, like Robert Christgau, who hates everything, but he loves Graham Parker. He gave this an 8 out of 10. And I think it's fine. It's still carrying on that R&B influences. It's a good record. I have nothing more to add about it unless you do.
Yeah. No, a couple of other tracks, several other tracks are among my favorites here. Pouring It All Out is kind of a statement of purpose, I always thought, as far as the way Graham and the band went about their business, especially live. I've also always liked That's What They All Say, which is a really kind of a scathing put down of, I don't know, it was a former lover or business associate or band member or what, but you listen to those lyrics, they cut pretty deep, and but a totally catchy song. So that's one of my favorites too. And then the last track, again, Fool's Gold, kind of an anthem and one of his best known early songs. So that's another favorite of mine.
Yeah, I get it. There is not a sophomore slump here at all. The whole record is
funny because when you say more of the same, most people would take that as a negative thing. But when more of the same is something that's so good, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's not negative on my. I think this record's fine. I don't have any issues with it at all. Mm-hmm. I do want to mention that in the UK that this record got up to 52, but in the US it got up to 169. The single, though, Hold Back the Night, got up to number 58. So people might not realize that, but the single did get up to number 58. So the performance of the record, I think, is getting better. So, Graham's doing better here in the States, though.
He had found his sound, but I think his record company, they were still trying to find his niche commercially, and they hadn't quite done that yet. He wasn't really a singles artist at that point. And
no, but John, we're going to try to make him into a singles artist. You know how it works.
Yeah, I do.
The next record we have came out in October 1977. Now, this record was kind of designed for an American breakthrough, produced again by Nick Lowe. Now, no Mutt Lange. I mean, like on the last record, Nick produced one track, but this record, we have Nick back. Now, I don't know what the reasoning was behind that. I don't know. Maybe you know. I don't know. Did
Yeah,
they
I
feel
don't know if there was any reasoning behind it, honestly. I think they were just buddies from the old Brinsley Schwartz days, and I'm not sure why they went to Mutt Lange and then went back
I
to
don't
Nick.
know.
Didn't seem to make much difference sonically, though. Honestly,
Yeah.
at least to me.
Well, like I said, that first album, the second album aren't much different sonically, and they just kind of fit in together.
Right.
So okay, so you know the whole story about this, right? They were recording with an 80-piece string section, and evidently there was a problem with a tape oxide leakage or something, and so this album definitely has a unique sound. But evidently, Graham thought, "Well, I dig this sound, even though that's kind of murky and I don't know, kind of grungy sounding." He dug it. He kept that sound on it. They didn't do anything about it. I don't know. I think it works. I don't think the fidelity, you're not going to call this an audiophile album, but I don't know. What's your thoughts on that whole?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very good record, but it's a little bit of a step down from the first two, song-wise. Sonically, it didn't really bother me too much. I was listening to it earlier today, and it is a little murky and just kind of a very thick sort of sound. But, and it has some really good songs on it, but it doesn't have as many great songs on it as the first two records. I mean, Stick to Me, the title track's a really good song. He does another soul cover here of I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down, which was originally done by Ann Peebles. And but I think my favorite track on here is one that was probably considered a throwaway by Graham. I don't really know, but a song called the New York Shuffle, which is it's a great song, and he did it in concert quite often, and it's kind of a sing-along, and I think it's great. I think it's the best thing there myself.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this record. I mean, Rolling Stone at the time kind of looked at it and went, they kind of faulted it for that muddy production. But this isn't the first album that had muddy production. Look at George Harrison, All Things Must Pass. It's kind of like, I will say this, John. I'm not a big fan of the whole Phil Spector thing, other than when Phil Spector does his Phil Spector thing in the 60s. But his production, like on John Lennon and George Harrison, not a big fan, but this definitely sounds better than a Phil Spector production.
Oh, definitely. And not to sidetrack too much onto Phil Spector, but the only solo Beatles thing sonically that I think was great that Phil Spector worked on was the Instant Karma single. And that's because John Lennon kind of reined him in and said, no, we don't want all the bells and whistles and the strings. We just want to, get in, record it, put it out. Don't tart it up in any way. And that was the only reason why it sounded that way.
100%. We always go on a tangent here in the Warehouse, and I will say this. I'm going to give props, and I've given props before. There is one Phil Spector production that I don't have a problem with in that later period, and that would be End of the Century by the Ramones. I do not have a problem with that. I love that record. People always think that we're on a tangent, ladies and gentlemen, so bear with us. People always dog that record. They think that is like the quality of that record's not quite up to snuff that what came before. But you know what? I don't. Chinese Rock, that record's so great. And what Phil did with that, well,
some of the stuff sounds wonderful. I mean, he got the Ramones their only hit single in England with Baby I Love You. I think that went top 10 maybe. And
I think so.
And it doesn't fit everywhere on the album, but I'm a huge Ramones fan. After the Beatles, the Ramones are my favorite. But I didn't look at that album and think, boy, the production makes it sound bad. It made it sound different, but all their albums around that time made it sound different. Pleasant Dreams, Graham Gouldman, that sounded different. The one after that sounded different. But anyway, I digress.
No, it's all good because in the Warehouse, ladies and gentlemen, we go on tangents. And this is a good tangent because we're just talking music. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking Graham Parker tonight. And all John and I are trying to do is turn you on to Graham Parker. And hopefully, if you have not heard any of these records, you want to go and check them out. That's all we're doing. Hell, go check out Ramones' End of the Century while you're at it.
Yeah, or anything else by Ramones. Yeah.
100%. All right, so we have this is really not a weak album that we're talking about. Next record we're going to talk about now is "Squeezing Out Sparks" from 1979, released in 1979 on Arista. Now this, well, we had Jack Nietzsche on here, co-produced with Graham Parker on here. Here's the record. This is the cover. You've seen this. If you were looking at the top 500 albums on Rolling Stone, God knows you've seen this before. But this album was recorded like in 11 days.
Hmm.
The Rumour is on here. They're not credited, but the Rumour is backing them. Well, come on. This is like this might be the pinnacle. I don't know. I'm going to throw it over to John to get his thoughts on this record. Squeezing Out Sparks from 1979. What's your thoughts on this, John?
Oh, I agree. It's the pinnacle for Graham Parker. It's the pinnacle for the Rumour. It sounds completely different than the first three records. I mean, no horns at all. They were stripped down to just a basic rock and roll band. And oh my God, did they ever rock? I mean, it was just the songs on here are all amazing. I mean, from top to bottom, there's not even an ordinary track. And Graham's lyrics, which are always worth listening for, very similar to Elvis Costello in that respect. You mentioned the similarities earlier that people would kind of lump Elvis and Graham Parker and Joe Jackson into kind of the same boat.
Joe Jackson,
all three were completely different. They were completely different. I mean, maybe a tiny bit of a vocal similarity, but if you dig into their catalog, completely different. Elvis never did an album like Squeezing Out Sparks, and neither did Joe Jackson. Just a powerful, powerful record. And it's just hard to narrow it down to, as far as which songs are my favorite. But, it starts right off with Discovering Japan. It's got that great kind of galloping drum beat to it. Local Girls was the single, very humorous and kind of a snotty put down of, I guess, some local girls that Graham once knew. Protection is one of my favorite songs on here. The opening line is one of my favorite lyrics ever. So all of you be damned, we can't have heaven crammed. So Winston Churchill said, I could have smacked his head. I mean, that just never fails to make me smile. And I mean, who writes stuff like that? I mean, no one writes. Graham Parker,
just Graham Parker, as far as I know.
Yeah. And there's one ballad on here, which is just incredible. It's called You Can't Be Too Strong. And it's written from the point of view of a young man, I guess, who has, gotten a young girl pregnant, and she goes in to get an abortion. And it's written from his point of view. And it's just, it's still, I'm getting chills just talking about it, but you listen to it. It's amazing. It's just an amazing achievement and very, very powerful, even though it's a ballad. Very, very powerful.
Right. Well, look at Allison by Elvis Costello.
Yeah.
Talk about a powerful track. Graham totally nails it with that track, 100%.
Yeah. And now I've got two different versions and I know there's probably more than two. I've got two different versions. You probably can't see. There's
okay. Yeah.
And then there's this one, which Graham self-released this. I just bought it from his website couple months ago. I'm not sure when he did that, but so the first one has Squeezing Out Sparks, and it also has Live Sparks, which is the first album, or which is the album done front to back live. And it was a promotional LP originally, and then the copy I have is called Squeezing Out Sparks plus Live Sparks. That's what this one was.
Yeah, anyway. I've got they put out this several years ago where there's classic albums. So you get 5 CDs in one package, and it doesn't have any bonus material. It's just, but it does, reproduce the album artwork faithfully, though. I'm good with that.
Right.
And, there's a lot of different versions.
So this version has the entire Squeezing Out Sparks, done live. It also has the version of I Want You Back that I referenced earlier, the Jackson 5 song. And it also has what may be the best put down ever of a record company, or a former record company, called Mercury Poisoning. Mercury was Graham's label here in the U.S., and they did not do right by Graham, and he wrote Mercury Poisoning, and it's a great song, great rocker, but he kind of lets loose on Mercury Records there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, and then the other version I have has a lot of live bonus tracks, but it's from a different concert from the Paramount Theater in Seattle, June 24th, 1979. So it's got a lot of the tracks from Squeezing Out Sparks, but it also has a version of Pouring It All Out, which was on, let's see, what was Pouring It All Out on? That would have been on, oh, geez. That was on Heat Treatment. So it's a totally different version, but in any way that you can pick up Squeezing Out Sparks, do it. It's a classic album. One of my top 10 of all time, quite honestly.
Yeah, I know it's a big record with Martin Popoff. Martin Popoff, though, is a big fan of Graham Parker. And
okay.
I know it's a record. So
I think Martin, does Martin still write for Gold Mine Magazine?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and so do I. So I read his stuff quite a bit.
Yeah, Martin's good. All right, so there you go. Squeezing Out Sparks. You got if you have. All right, if I'm going to recommend anything for anybody to get into, you could go with any of these 3 records that we've talked about so far. You might want to start with this, but God, they're all so good. I don't think you really have. I mean, what did I say? 3 records, 4 records. I think you could start out with any of these 4 records as a starting point. You know. The next record that we're going to talk about, once I find here it is. We're going to talk about the final album in this series we're going to talk about. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to continue this series, but we're stopping it in 1980. The record we're going to talk about now is the Up Escalator from 1980. This is Graham's final album with the Rumour, released May 23rd, 1980, Stiff UK, but it was on Arista in the United States. Produced by Jimmy Iovine, who did Tom Petty. He's produced a lot of stuff. And it's just funny. Wow, I'm not sure why he picked Jimmy to do this, but on this record, keyboardist Bob Andrews departed. Nicky Hopkins, Danny Federici, Peter Wood, they all filled in for Bob. But I'm just saying, that doesn't mean it's taken away from this record. So anyway, like I said, came out in 1980. What's your thoughts on this?
It's one that gets a lot of...
damn it.
It kind of gets short shrift, honestly. Coming after Squeezing Out Sparks, anything was going to be a disappointment, really. I mean, you set the bar so high, it's hard to top it. And I think this is where first of all, I love the album. But second, I think this is where things started to go wrong, maybe a little bit for Graham, because this started the rotating producer's chair. And when we go into the 80s, we talk about the 80s, we'll talk more about that. But he was kind of losing sight, I think, of who he was, and more trying to be what the record company wanted him to be. I mean, they saw this was going to be his big breakthrough album. Springsteen sings on one of these songs. I mean, but it just didn't happen. But it wasn't for the lack of really good songs. I mean, some of my favorites on here, Stupefaction, that was released as a single. No Holding Back, another great song. That was the opening track. Love song, sort of a love song he had written about his girlfriend at the time, who would later become his wife, Jolie Jolie, another great song. Endless Night is the one I believe that Springsteen sang on. Let me check my notes here. But yeah, really good, solid rock songs. And Endless Night was the one Bruce sang on, but just didn't connect with a wider audience for whatever reason. And I know they promoted the hell out of this at the time, but it just didn't happen. And, that's the age-old story for so many artists. You think they're about to break big, and then they don't, and no one really knows why.
Well, you've seen a lot of these artists, John, that, the record company might consider them a 70s artist, and then they hit the 80s, and they can't make that branch over to the 80s. Some of them do. Now, whether you think that they've made that, transition to the 80s or not, in a favorable way, that's up to you. But do you think that maybe they looked at Graham as maybe a 70s artist, and then they were he put this album out in 1980 and they really didn't know what to do? Or do you think it's Jimmy as the producer is a problem? What do you think it was? I listened to this record, John, and I don't have any issues with it. Actually, it's one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
I don't hear the criticism that I've heard. Like maybe it sounds a bit flat. I don't hear that at all. I don't know.
Like I said, I think people were just expecting too much, or they were expecting it to sound like Squeezing Out Sparks, which had a very pristine sort of sound and production to it. And this didn't have that, but it was by no means murky or muddy. It was a very powerful record. But, maybe not as many great songs as Squeezing Out Sparks, but again, hard to live up to that. I don't know why, because, like I said,
when I listen to it, John, I don't hear that. I don't hear any. As far as songwriting goes, I don't hear any degradation at all in that. To me, the songs are still there. Maybe the production's not like what you want as opposed to the previous record, but me personally, just between us, I don't have a problem with this record at all.
Right. No, neither do I. But I think, if Squeezing Out Sparks is a 10 out of 10, this is maybe an 8.5 or a 9 out of 10, which it's not as great as Squeezing Out Sparks, but it's still a wonderful record. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's got some really, really good songs on it. The Rumour, they're as strong as ever. But then, when we get into the 80s, we'll talk about the record company coming in and meddling, and the album after this. It was a whole different thing, a whole nother kettle of fish there. But I actually have two versions of this record too. I have just the original CD, which came out whenever it came out, and then I have one that was released on Graham's website, which has a different cover, and it's got 4 bonus tracks on it.
Nice.
It's got a song called "Women in Charge," which was the B-side to the which single? To the Stupefaction single. And then it's got "Mercury Poisoning," again, a live single B-side, and then "Stupefaction" and "Empty Lives" live versions of both those tracks. "Empty Lives" is a really powerful song on this record too. Very, very powerful and kind of moody, and just a really cool track. But overall, another great record.
So this was the last record with the Rumour. Do you have any idea why the Rumour was broken up and Graham just went solo? I mean, a lot of these records don't mention the Rumour, but we know that, you know what I mean. You know anything about that?
I'm pretty sure they all remain friends because Brinsley played on a lot of Graham's records going forward. And then, they reunited later. I don't know if Graham wanted to try something different or if the record company wanted him to try something different or what it was. The Rumour also had their career going at the time. They had 2 records just on their own that were released back in the late 70s. So they were certainly busy. But I really don't know what attributed to, them not recording with him as a full unit for several years. But definitely made a difference. The power wasn't there. I mean, his songs are inherently powerful, I think, lyrically especially and musically, but the Rumour kind of took that to another level for him. And I think he missed that when they weren't with him.
Well, I think I think it was a creative force. I think that the band that he had established, I think them being together, there's a certain chemistry. And without them, I think he might have lost something. But we don't know, ladies and gentlemen. We're not there yet. But I'm just saying, there's something to do with the chemistry of that original band on these releases that I think really hit home and, struck a nerve, struck a chord. It just worked, Yeah. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Graham's post-Rumour catalog because we're not there yet. But there was something, you have to admit, there was something magical about this era.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I mean, the first 5 albums, 4 of them, I say should be in everybody's collection. Stick to Me maybe, but the other 4 definitely. If you're a fan of, I don't know, you can't really pigeonhole Graham into any sort of genre. It's rock and roll. It's rock and roll. It's got horns, and then it doesn't, and it rocks hard, and then it doesn't. And there's ballads, and there's soul. There's the Morrison influence you talked about earlier. It's just really unique. He doesn't sound like anyone else. And he still doesn't. I mean, he's still out there today making records. He had one just a couple years ago called "Last Chance to Learn the Twist," which came out on Big Stir Records, which was amazing to me because some of you might know I play drums in a band called the Armoires, which is headed up by Rex and Christina, who run and own Big Stir Records. So now I can say that Graham Parker and I are label mates. It just blows me away. It blows me away because I've been a fan of the guy for so long. It's just amazing. I mean, it's amazing to me. He was the first interview I ever did for Goldmine magazine. It was Graham Parker in 1992. And is it okay to swear on this channel, Graham?
100%. We love swearing.
I will tell you, I was scared shitless before I interviewed him, just because of his reputation. Didn't suffer fools gladly, and kind of had that acerbic wit. And I thought, oh God, here I am, this relatively young sort of rookie writer. What if I make a mistake? He stayed on the phone with me for 2 hours. And it was a cover story in Goldmine in 1992. And afterwards, he sent me the nicest note. It was just the most amazing experience. So, good guy in addition to being a great musician.
Yeah, 100%. That man, the fact that you did that interview, you were just absolutely, man. You must have really, you pulled it off though. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good thing. It was a good thing. It was a phone interview, so he couldn't see my knees knocking together. But it was, he said, in his letter he sent to me, which I think is as much of a compliment probably as any writer would get from Graham Parker. He said, by something along the lines of, by not twisting my quotes or misquoting me, you did an interview that did not make me wince. All right, well, I'll take it. That sounds good to me.
I would take that too, my friend. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we could probably wrap this up. We're going to schedule another show where we're going beyond 1980. If I'm going to recommend anything from this catalog, like I said, I think you could either start out here. You could start out here, but any of these records I think would be a good starting point. But we will be back. And I do want to thank John for doing this with me. It's always, ever since I've had him on that Power Pop show, I was thinking, God darn, it's always a good conversation. John, is there anything going on with your world? What's happening with you? Anything you want to promote or?
Oh gosh, well, I might have an announcement about a new book coming up soon.
What's that?
Yeah, I might have a new book coming out soon. I'll be able to speak about that maybe on the next time we visit.
Hold on, John. Let me do it again. All right, I'm going to make an edit because that was got all worked up. All right, so John, it's amazing talk about Graham Parker. Is there anything going on in your world you'd like to talk about before we wrap this dog up?
Well, there's a few things, and actually one of them relates to Graham Parker. I mentioned earlier, Graham is on Big Stir Records, so are the Armoires, the band that I drum for. And there's going to be a special Halloween themed compilation coming out closer to that day. And the Armoires are on there, and Graham Parker is on there, a live version of one of his songs. So we will be on the same CD, so that's pretty exciting. So look out for that. Also, I might have news about a new book coming soon. You were talking about Power Pop earlier. I will hopefully be able to announce that the next time we chat. We're dotting the I's and crossing the T's as we speak. So yeah, very, very exciting stuff.
So John, if anybody's looking you up, how do they find you? How do we find John?
You can find me on Facebook. I have 2 pages, personal page just with my name, another one, John Borack, author, where I post things about, my reviews and columns for Goldmine magazine. I'm a contributing editor over there. I've been writing for them since 1986. Hard to believe, 40 years next year, man.
You're just a young pup, John. You're just a young pup.
I don't feel that way sometimes, and then I'm also doing a lot of other musical things, playing drums. I play with the Armoires, play with a couple of cover bands. I play in a Beatles cover band. So in and around Southern California, we're always doing something. So but Facebook's probably the best way to find me, or go to goldminemag.com, which is Goldmine's website. Do a search for my name, and you'll see a bunch of stuff on there I've written over the years.
Awesome. Excellent. Holy crap, ladies and gentlemen. Go out and reach out to John. Check out what he's been doing. I am just really, to have you back on the show, I'm just in total awe because I am really impressed with your work and the way you come off with your musical knowledge. And, ladies and gentlemen, in the Warehouse, we are just trying to turn you on to stuff. So I am so glad to have John here so we can turn you on to Graham Parker. So next month, I'm going to send out some dates to John so we can get John back out here in September. We can talk about that 80s period. Because really, like I said, we're just trying to turn you on to stuff. Pretty much.
There's so much good stuff. I mean, yeah, so much great stuff. And Graham, continues, like I mentioned earlier, continues to record to this day. And there's a lot of live albums. Like I said, a ton of compilations. If you want to find probably one of the best compilations, this was on Rhino Records. You can see it. Passion is no ordinary word. Graham Parker Anthology, 76 to 91. A lot of great stuff on there. One album we didn't talk about that came out in the 70s wasn't a studio album, which is why we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it real quick. We've got time.
The Parkerilla, which was a live record, which was tracks from his first 3 albums. And again, a little bit of muddy sound, but not horrible. But oh my gosh, so powerful. It just, great record. It kind of cherry picks the best songs from the first 3 albums. So that's worth having as well.
Yeah.
That was one that Robert Christgau didn't like.
He didn't like this?
No, he didn't like it. He thought it was too early in his career to have a live album. And he may have been right. He may have been right. It was just kind of a weird move. But Mercury Records did a lot of weird moves with Graham and the Rumour back then. So,
well, the thing is, John, I don't think that Mercury knew what to do with them. I mean, they're trying different things. They're trying to get Graham, to sell records. They're trying all kinds of things. I just don't think that they really knew what to do with them.
I think he was just on the wrong labels at the wrong time. I mean, Arista Records back in late 70s, Squeezing Out Sparks came out. They were promoting Barry Manilow and Dionne Warwick and all that kind of stuff that Clive Davis was doing. Right. Mercury Records, I mean, you can't name too many really great cutting edge bands that were ever on Mercury Records.
Rush.
Why did it know what to do with them?
They knew what to do with Rush, evidently.
Yeah.
10cc was on Mercury. Who else was on Mercury? Trying to think.
Yeah.
I only could think of, at least in this type of in rock and roll, Graham Parker, Rush, 10cc.
There weren't a lot, and those were different. And
Lindsay.
Yeah, but all different audiences than for what Graham was doing. But there wasn't like, it wasn't like Columbia Records or Warner Brothers where you had this stable of great artists. It was, there's a couple, there's a few, but overall Mercury wasn't known for their cutting edge sort of promotion of their artists. But oh well.
Yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back next month. We will be talking about Graham Parker in the 80s. I want to thank John Borack for being my guest tonight. John, I salute you, my friend. You are top.
Same back at you. I really enjoy what you do and the passion you put into it. So kudos to you.
I'm just trying to turn people on to stuff. It's not in my channel. It's not about. So you have some channels that are all about monetization. There's some people that, I'm not about that. I'm just trying to turn you on to stuff. See if you like it. So leave a comment down below if you know Graham Parker, or if you don't and you check it out. John and I are here just trying to turn you on to stuff. So please leave a comment. Go check out John's page on Facebook and stuff. Give him some love. Other than that, I think we can wrap this dog up, John. I will be in touch for next month, and we will do it again, my friend.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you on the next one. What's next in the Warehouse? I have no idea. I fly by the seat of my pants. But please like, subscribe. We will be back. John, I will talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much.